Do you ever wonder why it seems that so many people seem to die shortly after retiring? It's an important question for all of us to think about because if we think we're going to die shortly after retiring, well, it's going to cause us to delay retiring, I think. And as a retired financial advisor, I worked in the industry for 20 years. I want to share with you the 5 reasons that I think that happens and to let you know it doesn't have to happen to all of us. Okay, the first one is a lot of people work until their health does not allow them to continue working. So they're working to the point where they're already in pretty poor health. And the reality is work is stressful. And many people, a lot of people that I talk to say, "Hey, Azul, my job's not that stressful. I make decent money. I enjoy what I do. I'm good at what I do." Um, and frankly, I felt that all those 3 things I just said, I felt that way about my job. And I didn't realize until I retired, which was about 9 months ago as I record this, I didn't realize how much stress I really was under, and I also didn't realize how rushed I was. So, because our jobs are stressful, if we continue to work, if we continue to just just one more year, we're thinking of retiring at 64 or 65, but before we know it, it's 67 or 68. If we have this tendency to kick the can down the street, it may be a health issue, maybe a cancer diagnosis, a heart attack that wakes us up and says, I have limited time, so now I'm going to retire. So I think that's one reason is people wait until their health forces them to retire. And number 2 is related to health, and that is at some point, some people lose their focus on health. And I think the older we get, the more important maintaining our health is, trying to eat as healthfully as we can, um, doing grocery shopping, eating at the home cooked food, eating healthy foods as opposed to going out to eat. And importantly, going to the gym. Now, I'm not a physician. You want to talk to your physician before you go and start working out if you're not currently doing that already. But it's super important that we continue to move because in some ways we're signaling to our body when we quit moving that, hey, the active portion of my life is over. And I certainly don't want to signal that to my body. So it's important to stay moving. It's important to eat healthy. It's important to invest the time and the money to stay as healthy as we can. One thing is just maintaining our muscle mass. As we get older, we naturally lose a little bit of our muscle mass each year. And you may not be able to feel that one year versus the other, but over a 5, 7, 10 year period, I certainly do. And feeling that loss of muscle mass. And I try to go to the gym and lift heavy things 2 or 3 times a week. So it's important that we look at our health. The other thing, why do people die shortly after retiring is there's been recent research that has proven what many of us have felt. And there are periods of rapid aging. This is a Stanford research that was done that shows that genetically humans have 2 periods of rapid aging, one in our early 40s and one in our early 60s. And I certainly felt that in my 40s, and, I'm just 60 right now, but I can tell you there's a big difference between being 60 and being 57. I can feel that difference. So that's another factor at play. I should mention I'm not a doctor on any of this. These are just conversations that I've had and observations that I've made. Okay, so genetics was number 3. The next one is if we're not careful as we get older, we can get more isolated and we can begin to feel lonely. And I think it's easier now than ever to get isolated because there is online entertainment for us. Videos like this, mea culpa. I watch about a half hour of YouTube before I go to bed to kind of unwind. But if I'm not careful, that half hour can become an hour, and I end up spending a lot more time on technology than what I want, and that can lead to loneliness, right? Because there is this other voice in the room with us, and particularly on social media, we can find interest groups that are very similar to our interest groups. And I think that's great. But it's also important to find interest groups that get us moving, that get us outside. If you like to hike, if you like to mountain bike ride, whatever that activity is, road cycling, even going out to dinner. I talk about eating healthfully, but I also think it's healthy to get together with a group of people that you vibe with, that you enjoy being with. Because once we get lonely, um, yeah, that can lead to depression, and depression is hard on our bodies. And the time to make friends is before we go through a difficult period in our lives. And as we get older, we've got some difficult periods in our lives, right? We've got aging parents that at some point we're probably going to have to say goodbye to. We have adult children that maybe have a hiccup in their lives. As we get older, maybe it's harder to succeed at work, and we get passed over for a promotion. Or if we lose our job in our mid 50s, and we're planning to find another job, we can find out it can be difficult to find that next job. So having that support group, having those friends around us to help us navigate these difficult and challenging periods is super important. And sometimes people, as we get older, we drift away from that. So that's another reason that I think some people tend to pass away shortly after retiring is they've allowed themselves to get isolated. Now, the good thing is, we've gone through four of my five, and all of these, are preventable. Well, not the genetics and the rapid aging, but many of these things are things under our control. The next one is also under our control, although it's gonna take some experimentation, and that is sometimes when people retire, in fact, it's very, very common that people lose their sense of purpose, right? For a long time, part of we're part of a company, right? We're part of a team. We had a common goal, a common mission. We had proximity to people that we were meeting every day, and we're forced to interact with them. Many of us have been in our jobs for many, many years, and we had institutional knowledge and we had relationships. We could make things happen much more quickly and much more easily than younger people in our organization. So they would come to us for advice. And, candidly, for me, that felt good. And I think for many of us, that feels good. But when we retire, we lose much of that, if not all of that. So it's important to find that next purpose. And there's a great book. It's called From Strength to Strength. The author of that book is Arthur Brooks. I highly recommend you read it. I've recommended it to well over 100 people, and I've received so many compliments on that book. So it talks about, how do we build on our successes in the past? How do we build on the things that we've done in the past to continue to have satisfaction in retirement? Because unfortunately, the average retiree watches almost 40 hours a week of television. And I was excited to retire, but I can tell you I was not excited to the thought of watching television for 40 hours a week. And I don't think that's on your radar screen as well. So those are the main reasons that I think people unfortunately pass away sooner after they retire. If you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye bye.